You are now listening to the Just Jeff Podcast.
Today on the Just Jeff Podcast, we have the woman, the first-time author, the legend, one of the best all-around people you have ever met in your life, Margaret Humphrey.
Jeff, that was very kind. That was a great intro. Thank you. I'm excited about the podcast.
I'm a firm believer in giving people their flowers. You know what I mean? So that's something I'm gonna try to do. Because you never know, man.
Yeah.
Nobody beats Father Time. So you never know. So, Margaret Humphrey.
Yes.
First-time author.
Yes.
Just a little backstory for viewers, listeners. I met Margaret. I was introduced to Margaret. Where were you, a junior, senior in high school?
Maybe.
Something like that. Yeah.
Was I in high school?
Yeah, you were in high school. It was me, Ashley, Cicely at Ashley's parents' house.
Yes.
And you
Yeah,
were with her.
I was in high school.
And yeah, she introduced you, but I think you was in another room and you came and spoke and you went back to the other room.
Yeah.
So
Probably.
I think you was a little underage then, so we didn't talk much at that time. So
Yes.
we had to wait for you to become an adult. and now we cool now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yes.
So when I was first introduced to you, Ashley was your mentor.
Yes.
And keep in mind, Ashley is a mutual friend of my classmate. And when you first hear of somebody being mentored, you would automatically think they're a troubled child.
Yeah.
But as I've gotten to know you over the years, you don't come off to be a troubled child at all. So let's talk about how you first became to be a student that was being mentored. Because you seem pretty well put together, in my opinion.
Yeah. So Ashley was volunteering at an organization called Mission Waco, and it was an after-school program for like kids in Waco, mostly geared towards kids in like under-resourced communities. So kids living in poverty or close to the poverty line or whatever. And my best friend at the time was going to Mission Waco, and that we were at two different high schools, so that was my only way to be able to see her was to go to Mission Waco. So I started going to Mission Waco, and I was like, oh, this kind of fun, like this legit, I like being here, like I fit the criteria as far as like a kiddo coming from an under-resourced neighborhood, but I wasn't like a kid that got in trouble a lot and nothing like that. I was actually like super involved in high school, like in a lot of clubs and organizations and stuff like that. But when I started going to Mission Waco, I really liked it. And Ashley rolled up on me the first day I met her. She was like, oh, you so-and-so girlfriend. And I was like, how she know all my business? Like, I had never met her and she know all my business. And from that one interaction with her, we just clicked, like we connected. Cause she started asking me all about my life. And I was like, hold up, like, and don't nobody really ask you all these kinds of questions, and Ashley was asking me questions that got me thinking about stuff and everything. And then from then on, I wanted to be like around her as much as possible in that season. So yeah, I used to go home with her all the time. From the time I met her, spend holidays with her family, all of that. So
it's kind of crazy. In my opinion, I feel like y'all two are kind of it's like y'all personalities are kind of the same, So I don't know. I feel like it was a good fit. Once I got to know you a little bit, I'm like, they kind of like the same person. You know what I mean? So I think that worked out. I mean, because she kind of, Ashley, she kind of get up in your face at times, but it's with good intentions. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and it's like, if you don't know any better, you can like, who are you asking me all these questions? Lending your opinion, but once you get to know it, it's like, oh, I understand. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I've gotten that so much from high school, even to now. People like still think me and Ashley look alike. Yeah. And I'm like, I got lots of glasses. But it's fine. I'll take it as a compliment.
So you're from Waco, Texas?
Yes, I am.
born and raised.
Yes.
What I've never been to Waco. I've never really heard much about Waco besides Baylor.
Yep.
But so what's it like being a kid coming from Waco? Is it predominantly white or is it more of a mixed community?
Honestly, I don't know. I feel like growing up like in Waco, I didn't think about all of that. Like I just knew who I was around and my people. I in the areas of town that I grew up in, for the most part, it was like mostly black. Like I
Mm-hmm.
was in East Waco for part of my life and in North Waco for the other part of my life. And like it was mostly black. But the schools I went to, because they were charter schools in middle school and high school, it was a lot of mix. It was like a mix because like there was kids that went to the Methodist home that went to my school. And so that was like, I mean, you had white, Hispanic, but then you had Ethiopian, Ghanaian, like you had like kids from all over, like that went to the schools that I went to. And so it was never like, I don't know, I grew up in a diverse like situation, I guess. And so, but moving now on the other side of it, I do think that Waco is becoming a lot more popular because they got Magnolias and Baylor is there and people coming from, I mean, out of the country coming to Waco just to go to Magnolias because of the TV show. And it's becoming a little bit more gentrified. It's in certain areas, like when I drive into Waco from Dallas, I'm like, where all this come from? Like all this stuff was not here, but you can see how they like building up all along the major highway that runs through Waco. It's a tourist attraction right there, you know? And so that's interesting. But then you go into the neighborhoods where we grew up and some of it looked the same. And in other parts of it it's like very gentrified. So I think that's what you see in a lot of urban neighborhoods. You see gentrification, and then if you go deeper in, you can still see the remnants of the people who actually lived there and like, you know, been there their whole life.
So being a young lady coming from the city of Waco, so then you go up the road a little bit to UNT at Denton.
Yes.
So what was that like there at that college?
It was great, honestly. In high school, I had actually applied to go to school out of state. Like I was trying to get as far away from Waco as possible. And so I applied to a lot of out of state schools and I applied to 3 in-state schools and UNT was one of them because I had went on a tour of the campus like 2 years earlier and I was like, okay, I'll apply here, whatever. And one of my childhood best friends was going there. So I was like, let me just go. Let me just try it. And so I ended up, they gave me the best financial aid package and all that kind of stuff. And so I ended up going to UNT. It was it was college. It was a good experience overall. I was a first generation college student, so I was the first one in my family to go off to university. And so that was interesting because I didn't really know how to navigate, like what classes to pick, all this kind of stuff. I had a high school counselor who helped me a lot to do the stuff I needed to do before going to college. But then when I got to college, I was in this program and they helped me a lot to get acclimated and adjusted and all that kind of stuff to life in college. But I almost failed out of college. My first 2 years, I was living my life like it was golden, literally living the best college life ever. But then I went on academic probation, lost my financial aid, and I had to either go back home or work. So I started working I worked 3 jobs. 3 whole jobs so I can pay for a semester of school. And I was only able to take 2 classes because I still wasn't making enough to cover like more than that. So I took 2 classes and then another 2 classes out of pocket, paid for it out of pocket. And that was like the wake up call. Like, sis, you cannot flunk out of college and you also can't afford to pay for it by yourself. So you need to get yourself together so you can get this financial aid back. So that was like the push that gave me the rest of what I needed to graduate, but it ended up taking me 5 years instead of 4 to graduate from undergrad. So, you know, once you kill that GPA, like it's hard in the mug to get that mug back up. So, yeah. So, but it was a good experience overall.
So they be turning up and Denton like that?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's college. And it's
Mhm.
two colleges in Denton. You got UNT and you got Texas Women's. And like they not that far from each other. So I mean, it's a Denton right off the campus is what we call Fry Street. And it's just a
Mhm.
row of bars and a few restaurants. So you on your birthday you do what they call the Fry Street crawl. So you
Mhm.
go from one bar all the way around to the other one. You get a free shot at every one of them. It's like 10 bars, 9 or 10
Yeah.
bars. And you
Well,
just shot after shot. Like it's meant to be low key like a turn up town.
yeah.
For real.
Like,
For college, because it ain't nothing else to
well,
do.
no, I don't know what that's like, but I figure you're a little closer to home, so it's probably turn up time, right?
I mean, yeah. I mean, you could probably find it at any college town. One thing that I will say, you said you went to HBCU, and
Yeah.
I'm like, that is a thing that I kind of wish I would have done was, and I thought about, I was like, at least if I go back and get the master's, maybe I go to HBCU. But then the road to get the master's didn't really come for me, and so I mean, it's not too late now, but I don't think that that's the plan right now. And so I didn't get that experience, but I have friends that have HBCU experience, and I'm like, dang, I bet that was kind of lit,
Man,
you know?
the craziest thing, it wasn't even planned for me, It's
Yeah,
because I guess when you come from a certain background, you don't expect to go to college. You just kind of lost, after you graduate. And I just happened to have some friends that went to school there, and they would talk about how fun it was. And then I just ended up applying and got accepted. That was it. But as I've gotten older, I can appreciate it. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Just being around so many people, so many black people that's from so many different states, and and keep in mind everybody isn't into partying and the typical black stereotype things. Like
yeah,
it's a lot of people there that's really there for their education, and that's all that they focus on. Like you'll never see them at a party, you'll never see them out. You'll see them on campus, and that's about it. So that's pretty cool. Seeing that itself.
yeah,
But
yeah.
but enough enough about me. It's enough sidebar. Back to you. What is it like being the first person in your family to go to college? Was that a lot of responsibility for you?
It was, I feel like, because I'm also the youngest. I'm
Mhm.
also the only one out of the five of us that doesn't have kids yet.
Mhm.
And so I feel like there was kind of this pressure. I don't know if it was like intentional or what, but it was this pressure that I had to do something else. Like, does that make, like, do something other than what my siblings had done? And
Mhm.
not, my siblings are amazing. My sisters, I adore them, like seriously. But they were moms by like 18, 19. They were
Mhm.
moms. And so for me it felt like I was always pressured, like, you ain't got no kids, you can do whatever you want, and like all this kind of stuff. So it almost made it seem like you should be accomplishing something because you ain't got no kids and stuff like that. And so it did feel like it was a lot of pressure. I felt like I couldn't fail when I was almost getting kicked out of school because of my grades and stuff. Like, that was so hard for me. Like, because I was like, I felt like I didn't have room to fail. I couldn't go back home. I didn't want to go back home because there were people at home that was like, I don't know that you're gonna make it. Like, you probably will come back. Somebody told me, like, hey, if you go to college and get pregnant, you can always come back home. Like, and I'm like, wait, why is that the story that like, why can't I just go to college and be all right? Like,
Right,
but
right.
it did come with some pressure because it felt like I had to do the right thing. I had to, you know,
Oh, you
almost
had
be
to
perfect.
finish the job, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like, I ain't have room for mess ups. And
Right,
so a
right.
lot of stuff that I experienced in college, I didn't even tell my family about. Like, because I was like, nah, I'm not supposed to. Like, I'm
Mhm.
supposed to be out here doing well. And since then, like, one of my sisters has gone through and gotten her associates, and two of my other sisters are now in school and stuff like that. And so
Mhm.
I'm like, yes, I'm like rooting for them. But back then it did feel like it was a lot of pressure for me
Right.
to go and and do that and perform well.
Right. So would you say you learned from your sisters being parents at a young age? I mean, did that kind of make you want to not have kids at an early age, go to school, finish, kind of be different from your environment?
Yeah. So I adored my nieces and nephews, and so I was like I loved it, and I have a desire to have children at some point, but I think I wanted so badly to get out of Waco. I wasn't willing to do nothing that could jeopardize that. Like, so if having a baby early was gonna mean I was staying in Waco, I'm out. I ain't trying to jeopardize that, so I'm about to go. So college for me was, I used to say it all the time, it was my ticket out. It was my ticket out of Waco. It was my ticket to see something and experience something different. Cause I was so used to my city, and not, I was able to go places outside of Waco sometimes, but not often. And I was like, this can't be it. I want to try something different. And so
Right. So going to
I left
Denver,
and never came back.
it happens. It happens. So hey,
Yeah.
we can't knock you for it. So going to Denver, that was really your first time away from Waco on your own.
Yeah.
All right. So once you get your grades or get your report card, do they call it a report card in college?
No,
What do they call
they
it?
don't call it. I don't know what they call
Me
it.
either.
Shoot.
But so once you see you're failing, pretty much cut and dry. You were
Yeah.
failing. Would you say you became an adult at that time?
No, I think I was an adult before that.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. Because I feel like just because how I was kind of raised. So my parents divorced when I was super young, and my sister is again, there's an age gap between some of us, and so they kind of left the house, or we didn't live together, because they were older and stuff like that. And so at some point, I kind of rebelled a little bit, and I started acting like an adult earlier than I should have. But I think at some point I became independent and responsible for myself. You know what I'm saying? And I see that as when I became an adult, kind of probably roughly around 17, 18. And so going off to college, I wasn't even scared. I was not scared to go off to college. I was like, bye. But it was because I had felt man, if I've navigated life this far, I can keep doing it. Now that I'm 30, I'm like, why did I sign up to be an adult again? This sucks sometimes, But yeah, I think maybe I could say ending the end of high school leading into college is when I really started to feel like I was an adult.
Okay. All right. So after graduating, you come to Arkansas. All right. So what do you think about your experience in Arkansas?
Jeff, listen, okay? So you remember Ashley and Ramon's wedding?
Mm-hmm.
So when I came to their wedding was in Hot Springs, and I said, oh my gosh, I love it. I remember calling my cousin Red, and I told him, I said, man, I love it out here. It's so nice. I'm walking down Bathhouse Row, and I'm it's so pretty, da da da. I want to live here. Fast forward to when I actually moved to Hot Springs, I was like, why did I say I wanted to live in Hot Springs? This is not what I thought it was going to be. But it was a whole lot of stuff happening when I transitioned out of college into going to Hot Springs. But when I got to Hot Springs, I realized real quick that racism was way more active than I thought it was. Because there was that Confederate statue at the end of Bathhouse Row, and you would see about 6 white people marching around that Confederate statue. And I'm like, what? Is this real? I'm not saying I didn't think racism existed. I was just like, this is way, even that, them marching around a Confederate statue was amplified racism to me. That was whoa.
And this was about 2012?
2013.
2013. Okay.
And then you think about that. While I was living there, that is also when uh 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 Trayvon Martin had been killed. That was when Dylan went in that church and shot them people at that Bible study. Like all of these things was happening while I'm living in Arkansas. So you got the rise of like people protesting against the Confederate flag and the Confederate statues and all this kind of stuff. And then you right here in this little small baby town, you got people marching around this Confederate statue while I'm working with students from all over the state of Arkansas trying to help my Black students navigate what the heck is happening in the world when Black people are just getting shot and killed for no reason. You know what I'm saying? And then their white friends are like skipping past them in the hallways, and they're grieving, and they white friends are just oblivious to the experience that they having. You know what I mean? And I was living in that in Arkansas. I cried a lot in Arkansas because when I first moved, you know, me and Denise, we hadn't like connected like that yet at the beginning. So I was there by myself. I didn't have no friends in Hot Springs. Thank God for Denise, because I don't know how much longer I would have made it. But like then I got connected to y'all, and I was like, oh, thank God. Like this feels like a home away from home. You know, where I see people that look like me. Like, you know, I can just chill. I can just be myself here. And so that experience in Arkansas was interesting. It was also very eye-opening for me. In Texas, before I moved there, a lot of relationships, like friendships that I had fallen apart right before I got ready to leave from Texas. And so in that time that I was in Arkansas, trying to like just grow and heal and rebuild my life, like I didn't have those people to lean on and be my crutch anymore. So I had to kind of learn how to stand on my own in that way, like and navigate life a little differently without those people. And then you know, I started to build relationships with other people, and it helped me a lot.
Right.
Then my girl Bree moved to Arkansas, and you know, yeah.
Hey, she pretty cool. How's she doing?
She's great. She out in LA living her best comedic life.
So what made you want to get baptized? Was that your first time, or you know?
No, I actually had gotten baptized when I was like 13, but it was just the cool thing to do because my friends was doing it. But actually, so my last year in college, I was going through some really hard stuff. I mentioned it a little bit in the book, but I had been struggling with suicidal thoughts, like depression, all that throughout high school. And in college, I started drinking and partying real hard to try to kind of, you know, deal with that stuff or whatever. So towards the end of college, I stopped doing all of that, and I started, you know, trying to have a relationship with God and stuff. So I started really trying to have that relationship before I moved to Arkansas. And then I think that's why all of them relationships kind of died out before I left Texas, like, because God needed me to be away from the thing that was my crutch at that time. And so when I moved to Arkansas, like, you know, me and God really started to develop a better relationship, honestly, because I didn't have other people to depend on to build it for me. I had tried everything else I knew to try to cope with what was happening in my life. And finally I was like, okay, God, fine. I'm gonna give you a chance for real. And so then my life like looked a little different and stuff. And so I came to Arkansas, and it was just time for me to continue to grow, because I was out there like rebuilding and relearning and all that kind of stuff. And so I did get involved in the church out there, and I got rebaptized because I was like, I feel like the first time I did it, I just did it because everybody else was doing it. And this time, like, I want to do it for me, you know, as a public profession of my faith in Christ, you know. And I got involved with a church out there, and that I left after a little while. But that's a whole nother story about that experience. But yeah, so that was you know, that this book, if we talk about the book at all, but the book was actually kind of born in that time when I transitioned to Arkansas.
Okay, so I'm glad you mentioned this. So now let's talk about the book.
Yes, let's talk about my first book.
Okay, let's talk about the motivation
Yeah.
of you writing this book.
Yeah.
What was your motivation behind this?
So originally this was going to be a blog post that
Mm-hmm.
I posted on my blog that I didn't really even share with people that much. And it was honestly, I had been like processing through things, not really processing. Like there would be moments when something would come up about my dad, my relationship with my daddy, and I would journal it or, write or whatever. And so I had started a blog post and then I kept adding to it. And I was like, this is way too long to be a blog post. Like maybe it could be, maybe it's a book. And I was like, I don't know. Like I'm scared at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But as I like continued to try to work through some of my daddy issues. So like when I was in Arkansas, I think this was like going into my second year, I guess, in Arkansas. I was on the phone with my daddy and he was telling me about he was taking his girlfriend's daughter to a water park. Jeff, I hung up the phone and I cried. Like I cried like real and I was like, I do not know why I'm crying. And like I realized like I was crying because I never got to go to a water park with my daddy. Like my daddy's never taken me to a water park. And it hurt me because I was like, I'm an adult now. And I have missed out on so many memories and so many things with my daddy because of his absence, like, in my life and stuff. And so as I just began to process that, like this blog kept getting longer. And so about, I guess it was maybe 5 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, I started really thinking, okay, maybe this can be a book. And I started trying to figure it out. But then I kept putting it off to the side. I was like, no, God don't want me to write no book. Like, this can't be no book. I don't want to write no book about this. And it wouldn't go away. Like, it kept coming up. It kept coming up, kept coming up. And so over the last, like, 2 years, like, I have been, like, intentional about writing this book. And my motivation changed because for the last 7 years, I've been working with young people, like primarily girls,
Mm-hmm.
from elementary school all the way up through high school. And I saw how so many of them didn't have relationships with their dad. And I saw like things that I struggled with in them. And I'm like, and it might be like they don't even realize that it's stemming from a broken relationship with their daddy because I didn't know that when I was younger, and like then they became my motivation because I was like, man, there's so many girls out here that's struggling in some kind of way with a broken relationship with their daddy. Like if my story in any way can be used to like help them start to process through that, help them start to heal that, like I'm going to share it. I'm going to share it. And the whole time as I kept wanting to quit, kept wanting to give up, like I was trying to keep that in my mind. And I had people around me too to help me kind of like keep pushing, keep doing it, whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
I think at some point I realized like if I can help another girl, another woman, whatever, even heal a small part of what is broken inside of them because of a broken relationship with their dad, like I want to do that. I want to do my part. And the book was super healing for me, even to process through some of the stuff that I had to process in order to write this book, like
Mm-hmm.
process through things that I didn't even realize I was struggling with. And so it just became more than just being about me, more than my fear because I was scared.
It's kind of ironic how just a moment ago you kind of just sat there and shook your head, and
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to kind of describe certain things, especially like if you have issues with your father, it's like you can really only just shake your head at it. And even as I'm reading it, now I'm gonna be honest, I'm gonna tell you the part kind of got me is when he said God is the reason why the relationship that you guys have with one another is that way. I was like, it's like, how can you say that to a kid? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially a kid that's expressed to you like they wanted more of you. You know what I mean? And I was just like, man, You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? I almost got in my feelings a little bit, And keep in mind I have daughters, you know what I mean? So
Yes.
it's like it's tough, and then as I'm reading, I'm like, man, is this something that my daughters will want? Like especially because you said it, a couple times in the book, you wanted him to tell you that you were beautiful,
Yeah.
and I'm like, man, is this something that my daughters are gonna want one day? Like for me to tell them that, and it made me want to tell them at the moment. Like as I'm reading, I just wanted to tell them that. But going back a little bit, when did you realize or accept that you may have daddy issues? Because I'm sure nobody wants to accept that they have any type of issues.
Yeah.
So when did you realize it or accept it?
I think I accepted it around the time of that phone call.
Mm,
And what I mean is like I knew that something like I knew that me and my daddy and my relationship wasn't great. A lot of people haven't heard me talk about my daddy like often. And so I realized like when I do talk about my daddy, like I was always trying to, talk about the good qualities about him because I think my daddy is a super cool dude. Like he's so nice. Like am a lot like him. I'm like him in a lot of ways. And so like I would always try to paint him in this like good light because that's how I wanted to see him because I knew that in my heart like I was still like hurting from our relationship not being great. And so I think I accepted the fact that I had daddy issues around the time of that phone call so that I can then move forward from him because before I was like I just don't have a good relationship with my daddy. Like, oh,
mm,
I don't have a good relationship with my daddy. Like, I know who he is. He knows who I am. Like, I talk to him every once in a while. Like, that's it. But then at that moment, I was like, Margaret, you have issues that stem so much deeper than that you're
mm.
not even talking about. Like that you haven't even scratched the surface on. And then that's when it kind of took me on this path of trying to, work through them. So, yeah.
So let me ask you this. As I'm looking through your book, right?
Yeah.
And you share a couple things. You share a couple journal entries.
Uh-huh.
Are these the real journal entries? Like from that day?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I
I
was
journal quite a bit.
well, I kind of picked up on that a little bit. I was like, man, these look like the
I
actual.
have like 30 something journals over here in the basket. I journal almost every day.
Man, I was like, man, this is like this it. Like I felt like I was there in the moment, like when certain things happen. I'm like, man, these are the real things. And I think you did a good job of kind of highlighting it by the change of the fonts, which kind of took me there. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think you did a pretty good job with that. So in your book, you tell your dad about the book. This is before you're finished with it, right?
Yes. This is
And
like maybe a month ago.
a month ago.
Yes.
And he was it seemed like he kind of had a nonchalant reaction to it.
It was actually because in video I can tell you you can hear it in my tone how he responded. He was like, "Oh, baby, I ain't never been in the book before." Like in his mind, like he was like, "Hey, I feel kind of famous about this." Like, but I don't think that he was fully comprehending what I was trying to say and what I was trying to share with him. As far as like the depth of like what our relationship really did or like how it really impacted me, I don't think that he's like fully comprehended that yet. And that's okay. Like I mean, people are on different levels and I don't fault him at all for that. In that moment it felt very like I was like, wait, like daddy, like do you hear what I'm trying to say though? Like, and I don't know that um he fully like got it what I was saying in that moment. Now, if he went if he reads the book, because he will get a copy of the book. If he reads it, I think he'll get a better understanding. You know what I mean? But I knew for my own just mind and sanity, I wanted to tell him about the book before somebody else read it and then told him. I was like, no, like, why would I do that? I want him to know about it. And if we so we can possibly have a conversation about it and, and stuff like that. And he can hear it from my mouth and not somebody else's, you know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, that kind of happened. And I was like, he took it in the way that he could digest it at the moment. And so.
Right. So, in your opinion, this is just my opinion. It's kind of like he doesn't even fully understand, kind of what he's put you through, throughout your years on this earth. Would that kind of be safe to say? Like he really don't understand?
I don't think so. I think that's right to say, in a sense that I don't think he comprehends it all the way. Like, I don't think, because this is not a topic that's talked about in my family or immediate or extended, because, my daddy is not the only one that, wasn't necessarily super active in his kid's life. Like, I have uncles who weren't, I have cousins who weren't, my brother, like, you know what I'm saying? So it's not something that's talked about. So I think to him, because we would talk every once in a while, and when we hang up the phone, we say, I love you and I love you too, and stuff like that. I think to him, he genuinely thinks that we're like, it's okay, like where we are. He's like, oh, it's good. Like, I know her, she know me. We talk every once in a while, And so that's why I say I don't fault him, because I'm like, I don't know if he really understands the dad wounds that came with that. And so it's like, in his mind, it's okay where we are,
right.
And I have to figure out what I want to do with that, whether I want to keep pushing to have the conversation, whether I want to accept where we are, or cut ties or whatever. Like, you kind of get to decide what you want to do with that at that point,
Right. It's kind of like, do you want to accept his love for what it is now, or do you want to go over the top with trying to get more from him? Yeah. That's kind of a tough situation, right?
Yeah.
I would think so,
Yeah, for sure. Because it's like, if you put in more effort and you try to pursue a relationship, in that way, and then it's like, nah, I'm good where we, like, I think we good. Like, that feels like rejection, low key. Like, you keep putting yourself out there, like, hey, I want this relationship. I want this relationship. And if it's not returned, or if the actions don't equal match what they're saying, like, that feels like rejection all over again. So it's like, you're putting yourself out there to potentially be rejected, but then you're putting yourself out there to potentially, like, get the love and relationship that you want. And it's just like, which one do you want to do? You know what I'm saying? And so that's kind of like the decision that you got to make.
Right. So we're talking about your dad, and all right, now this is one thing I thought that was kind of funny. I mean, it's not funny, but it was funny the way that you worded it in the book. Situationships.
Yes.
So, because
I don't know if people call them that anymore, but
yeah, me, I'm a guy. We don't talk like that. You know what I'm saying? It's just, old girl. And where I'm from, we used to call them that. What's your name?
Okay. Y'all good in country.
Hey man, we kind of had our own lingo, so we used to call them that. What's your name? So it's safe to say from reading that your relationship with your dad kind of pushed you into some situationships.
In some way, in a roundabout way, yes.
All right. So it's just like, do you think, is it more just want some type of love or affection from a male, and it kind of just
that's where it kind of stemmed from. Like, for me, it was the question of like, what was wrong with me, or why wasn't I enough for my dad to like stay around and stuff like that. And so in a lot of relationships, I did whatever like the guy wanted, or whatever I thought the guy wanted from me, in order to keep them around, like, because that was what I wanted. I didn't want them to abandon me. I didn't want them to leave me. I wanted them to affirm me and to love me and all this kind of stuff. And if XYZ thing was going to make them love me or affirm me or whatever, then that's what I was willing to like adapt to or mold to or whatever. And so in a lot of those relationships, that was what was happening. Like, I was looking for affirmation, and I was looking for somebody to stick around and all this kind of stuff. And it ended up turning into a lot of situationships where dudes would not even be my boyfriend, but they had boyfriend husband benefits, if that makes sense. Like, and I was okay with that. Like, I was like, I'm okay. I in that moment, I was like, I'm okay with being something to somebody, just so that I'm not nothing to nobody. Like, you get what I'm saying? Because I didn't want to be by myself. I wanted to be affirmed. And so that's kind of like a cycle of relationships. Started with a few, like stable ones in between there, but not a lot.
Like it's a big thing. Like it's a big issue within women.
So I have seen it in a lot of them. I don't know if I would say the majority, because some of them look for affirmation in other ways. So some of them look for affirmation in their achievements, in their appearance, in their academics. And so you kind of start to see this, like, I don't know, you can kind of see some of the self-esteem issues, but they just show up in different areas. Because not all the girls that I've had the privilege of like mentoring and doing life with, not all of them are into like relationships right now, but they're super into their academics. And let them get a failing grade. Let them not get an A, and their whole world is shattered. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can see it popping up in other places, not just in the context of relationships, where they like trying to perform to get the affirmation and the love and the acceptance from other people, because there's like a void where that was like missing from a foundational person in their life. Like, somebody, literally, when you think about your parents, like, bro, y'all created me. Like, out of everybody in the world, low key, y'all the ones that's supposed to love me, because I came from y'all. Mm-hmm. But when that's broken, when that's missing, whether it's the mama or the daddy or both, like, you go looking for that. You go looking for something to fill that void, and we fill it in different ways.
Mm-hmm. So, one of the worst days of your life, from the book, and I'm guessing this was part of the way that you filled your void. And it sounds like one of your worst days is when you missed school for the first time.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Ain't that crazy?
Yeah, I know. I'm like, so she crazy. Cried. She cried because she missed school.
I did. Listen, I had perfect attendance. I was like, literally, I performed very well at school. Like, I talked a lot, but for the most part, like, all my teachers liked me. Like, I had friends, like, all this kind of stuff. And for me, I have perfectionist tendencies. And so in that situation, my perfection was broken because I had missed school. My perfect attendance award is gone, and every other thing that came with it. You know, they have a whole ceremony for you when you got perfect attendance. It's a big deal. And to my little elementary head, like, that was a big deal for me. Mm-hmm. And I missed school, and I cried. And my mama couldn't come pick me up because she was at work, and she could not come take me to school. And so.
And what year in high school was this again?
No, that's elementary school.
No, the first day that you missed, this was in high school, right? No, elementary. You're right.
It was in elementary school. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So yeah, and so that ended up being like a bigger deal to me back then as a kid, but in hindsight, as an adult, when I think back over that, I was like, dang, like, all of the accolades and all of the applause and all of that came from me having perfect attendance all those years stopped at that, that day that I missed school. So for me, that was my affirmation. That was my identity. And now it's messed up because I done missed a day of school. So yeah.
Yeah, that was a little tough for me to read, Mark. I've never had a perfect attendance ever. So that was a little tough for me.
Listen, I used to love school. It was my favorite.
You pretty much took, your father not being there fully. We're not going to say, because, obviously you have a lot of love and respect for him. So we're not going to say it's not like he was never there, but it seemed like you kind of replaced him with a religious father.
Mm.
So was that the motivation?
I don't know that I would word it that way. I think
the religious father part.
No, the replacing my father
okay.
with,
I got you.
yeah. So there is no replacement for my daddy, to be honest. Like that's just real. There is no replacement for him. He is the only one that I got. You know what I mean? And so he will always, like, his place will always be secure in my life. What I feel happened because of my broken relationship with my dad, I was not able to see God as a father also. And so I say that, I think I say this in a book. My daddy was the standard of what a father looks like. And God, I was comparing, like, I was like, oh, God and my, when really God is the standard of what a father looks like. And my daddy is like, to be like, you know what I mean? So God is not under my daddy. My daddy is under God in that way. And so for me, I was not able to see God as like my ultimate father, my heavenly father, like in all of his character as my father. I wasn't able to see that because I had a broken relationship with my earthly father. So I'm like, that's hard to like see when this is broken. That's hard to trust when this is broken. And so in this process, in this journey, I realized that I still have a desire for a relationship with my daddy. My daddy will never be able to be replaced by no other man. Nobody will ever be able to replace my daddy. But lastly, like, God is ultimately a good father, regardless of what my earthly father looks like. So, and I can look to him and I can trust in him as my heavenly father. Like, you know what I mean? But it's not that he took the place of my daddy. My daddy's still my daddy and God is still God. But I see him in the way, like, so my dad was not there to protect me in certain situations. God is always there to protect me. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, there was some things that were lacking because I didn't have my daddy there. God was always there to fulfill those things, And so, that's how I see it. So I don't know if I see it as a replacement, more as I just begin to see it with a new perspective, like that God has always been my ultimate heavenly father, and my daddy will always be my daddy, and they can both coexist.
Yeah. I think it's kind of ironic, right? Like I've had daddy issues myself, right? Like me and my daddy, we don't have a good relation. Well, I'm gonna say it's not the best. It's a cordial relationship, or somewhat cordial, because you're supposed to be happy to see those people and talk to them, whatever. But I think it's ironic that you can talk about this and it doesn't make you overly emotional.
Yeah.
So it kind of says like you've been dealing with it for a long time.
Yeah, it's been a process, because I think I went through a period of time where I was like numb to it, in a sense. Like, so I just tried to put it on the back burner and not deal with it. I went through that. Then I went through a period of being extremely emotional about it. And now I'm at a point where I feel like I'm processing it. I'm working through it. Like, I am an advocate for therapy. I have a therapist. But then I also have people around me, like women who are mentoring me, and stuff like that, where I can talk about this. I share in the book, even as recently as February of this year, I was crying over this like idea, like that what if me and my daddy's relationship never looks like I want it to look? And I cried over that. And that was earlier this year, and so it is. I cried whenever we had that conversation about, when he was saying like, hey, God, like this is what God intended for our relationship to look. Because I was like, how can you say, like, in that moment my feelings was hurt, and like, so I am to a point where I can talk about it and dialogue with people about it. When there used to be a time when I was like, I'm not bringing that up for nothing. You know what I'm saying? And now I'm at a point where I can talk about it, but it's primarily because I'm dealing with it and it doesn't have a hold on me like it used to,
Right.
And so, yeah, I think that's where that comes from.
So all right, so you're dealing with a therapist and you
Hmm.
can kind of talk about it a little more openly now, right?
Hmm.
Is it easier to talk to people who had the same experience, or is it easier to talk to a therapist?
Um, maybe my therapist. I think it's easier for me to talk to my therapist, just because she's a therapist. But I think talking to people who have had similar experiences, like sometimes I don't know what to do with it. Like in the process of writing this book, and like as people found out that I was writing a book and they would ask me like, what is it about? Some people you would say and they'd be like, oh, okay. And they won't ask you nothing about it. But then you have people that's like, oh wow, like this is what my relationship with my daddy was like. And then I'm just like, oh my God, like what am I supposed to do with it? Like how do I respond to them? Like I don't know what to say, And so sometimes it can feel like, dang, like what do I do for somebody when they come and share that they've had the same experience? And so like I don't know. I think because of that, it is easier to talk to my therapist, but I want to be more comfortable talking with people who have had the same experience. I want people to feel like my way of processing and healing, like, and going through, trying to heal the dad wounds that I had is the same for every single person, because it's gonna look different for everybody. And so I'm like, my hope is that if I talk to somebody that got the same experience, that they walk away feeling like I heard what they said, like I listened to them, I loved them, I responded to them well, like, you know what I'm saying? Because I don't want nobody to walk away and feel like, well, you got to do this and you got to do that, and I don't want that to be a thing. And so there's like a pressure in that too. So it's I don't know. I think right now, just because talking about it with other people who may have been through a similar thing, is so new to me. I still feel more comfortable. Like it's easier for me to talk about it with my therapist. But right now, it's easy to talk to you right now. And that's because, of course, because I know you, but also because I get to have a conversation with you. Like it's a dialogue, and I can talk about things and I can kind of share like, this is where I was and this is where I'm at now, or this is what I was feeling or whatever. I have more freedom to say, kind of explain it a little bit. I don't feel
Yeah.
rushed or whatever.
Yeah. So if you had to kind of weigh them, like out of anything that you've had issues with, would this be number one on your list?
Uh, Probably, yeah. Yeah, I think so. In therapy, like this isn't the only thing that I talk about. Like I talk about like quite a few things because there are like a few, like a lot of things that have gone on and happened and stuff like that in my life. But I think this issue with my relationship with my dad is so much of a higher priority, number one, because that's like a fundamental relationship, and that kind of happened, that started when I was like little, but then also because of that broken relationship, I struggle with a lot of identity issues. And so that also is like a major thing that impacts every area of my life. So I think that's kind of why it's a little bit higher priority than some of the other stuff that I'm like unpacking, you know.
Right.
But yeah, for sure.
So what was it like that first time when you actually heard your daddy tell you that you were beautiful?
Um, it happened when I wrote him that letter,
Mm-hmm.
and in the moment, I couldn't really like take it in as truth, primarily because it had been almost 25 years since I had heard that, you know what I'm saying? But then also I was questioning like, are you only saying this because I'm sitting right here and I'm telling you that I've not heard this, or do you really mean it? And in that moment, like I was struggling with that. Like, does he mean it, or is he just saying it because I'm here? And so I couldn't really take it in and believe it.
Right. It's
So
kind of like you couldn't enjoy it fully because you had to pull it out of him.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
tough. So as you were growing up, and the first time you heard a man outside of your dad tell you that, so how did that make you feel?
Um,
That's a good question, huh?
it is, because I don't know that I know that nobody's asked me that, but I think it spoke to something that was in me that was broken, because I wanted to hear that. So I'm sure it felt good. I think that that's one of the reasons why I endured so much in different relationships,
Mm,
because I was hearing affirmations. You know what I'm saying? Affirmations that I had desired to hear for so long.
mm,
Um, and so you can kind of get caught up in that. It's like, oh, this is the thing I wanted to hear, and they're saying the right thing to me. Like, let me go be with them. Let me give them my whole heart and all this kind of stuff. And you don't always question it, because you've
mm,
been waiting to hear that for so long. But it's weird, because then it's like when my daddy finally said it, I'm like, I'm questioning it all over. But if some
mm.
dudes say it, I'm not really questioning it. It's
Right,
crazy. It's
right.
like a listen, that's something I probably need to process. But
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
see, as a dude, I feel like every woman needs a man in their life to kind of, coach them on how to move with guys. You know what I mean? And I hate to say it, but I'm just a firm believer in that. So, I know some women that have friends, male friends, like, just friends, like nothing else. They've just always been cool. And you'll see certain things come up with guys in their life, and I'm like, that guy wasn't really your friend. If he didn't tell you how to handle the situation, he wasn't really your friend. You know what I mean? He was probably just too scared to shoot a shot. You know what I mean? And I think that's just me, because if we friends, I don't want to see you, you know what I mean, go down a certain road if I can give you the game on it, or give you some insight on it and kind of tell you how to move. So I said that to say, did you have a male in your life growing up to kind of tell you how to, go about moving with guys?
So um I share a little bit about some of them in the book. I had, through random points in my life, yes, I had guys in my life who were genuine, like, solid dudes, um, who tried to spare me sometimes, like, from entertaining and engaging with some of these dudes. And I still currently have some guys in my life, that, like, I remember this one guy asked me out, like, maybe like 2 years ago or so. I've been asked out since then, but I'm just using this as an example. And I was like, I don't know nothing about him. So I went and I talked to this other dude I know. I was like, hey, so peep game, like, I'm telling him da da da, and he was like, nah. He's like, 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 he gave it to me real. Like, he was like, no, this is like what's going on or whatever. Um, and like, I have guys now who will be like, hey, like, if if um if this dude, can be, straight up with you and tell him like, what he wants, whether it's friendship or something else, like you don't owe him your time like that. If he's just gonna waste it, if he's just gonna play around and stuff like that. When it used to be a time in my life when I was like, oh, he asked for my number, like it don't matter, he like me, I'm about to give him my number and we gonna hang out or whatever. But now I do have, like, even now I have those dudes who are like, nah, like, sis, you don't, like he ain't serious. He not gonna be for real with you. And is this what you looking for? Stuff like that. So I do feel like I have had those guys, and now I still do have them, like even now.
I got a little sister. It's a big age gap between us. She's what, 21. I'll be 36 this year. You know what I mean? But I used to try to give her what I could because keep in mind it's an age gap. We didn't grow up around each other. When I left, she was like 3. But when I came back home and I got to be around her a little bit more, I'm trying to give her what I can. You know what I mean? Because as I said earlier on, we're not gonna be here forever. But I used to always tell her, I'm like, look, listen, if you're gonna be with a guy, make sure he got a plan. You know what I mean? If he doesn't have a plan or any type of direction, you're just gonna be in a stagnant relationship, And of course, she's blowing me off, but I'm a guy, so I see guys. You know what I mean? I talk to guys, and like I tell a lot of women, it's kind of slim pickings out here for single women, in my opinion. You know what I mean?
I would agree.
And, it's not to knock anybody or anything, but it's so many guys that's out here that have they have so much baggage, and it kind of makes me feel bad for women because I tell Denise this. I feel like women are the leaders of this world. You know what I mean? And it's like you're gonna be, well, not you, but some people are gonna be forced to deal with it with something that they shouldn't have to. Just because the pickings are so slim.
It's either like settle or stay single.
Right. And I mean, the good thing, well, for one, I empathize with your book because, having daddy issues myself, I can relate. It's just, if this is coming from a woman and, I'm a male, but I think it'll be a good read for men, just because it's basically, even though you're 30 now, almost 31, it's just like saying, I'm your daughter. To any man who may read it, I'm your daughter. This is what you're doing to me. Whether it's going to jail, not coming home, stuff like that, So hopefully people, especially men that's into reading books. I know I'm not. This is the first book.
I appreciate you for taking the time to read mine.
Oh, man, I got to get this mic together. This is the first book I have read maybe since middle school, high school, or something like that.
I'm honored.
I'm not even gonna say for girls. I'm gonna call you women. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't like it when some people. I mean, if you're an adult, you're a woman. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
A girl's.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's no problem. But yeah.
But I was just gonna say, because I think, how you were saying, like, you as a guy, like you have dealt with your own like dad issues, I think that sometimes even like there are a lot of guys who haven't had a male role model or father figure to teach them how to navigate relationships with women. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, even with my own dad, like I don't know what my daddy's childhood was like. I don't know what his life looked like, all of that kind of stuff. Most of, like 3 out of the 4 my biological grandparents were all passed away before I was even born. My dad's dad was the last grandparent I had living, and he passed when I was super young. So I say that to say, like, I don't know what role models my daddy had growing up, to show him like what it looks like to be a father, what it looks like to, all that kind of stuff. And so I feel like uh, right now we are lacking a, a lot of male role models
Right.
to like teach our guys, like what does it look
Mm-hmm.
like to be a dad? What does it look like to engage a woman in a relationship? Like, stuff like that, because you either learning it, you trying to figure out how to do it on your own because you didn't have the example to look up to, or you saw somebody else like doing this thing and you like, oh, I like that they're doing that, like I want to try that with my kids, but for some there ain't no example to follow,
Right. Right.
or they seen it very unhealthy.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah.
yeah.
It's kind of ironic you say that, right? Because I got issues on both sides of my family, on my mama's side and my daddy's side. But kind of like I got a bunch of uncles on my mama's side that I never really had a relationship with, and I was talking to one of my cousins. She's a woman, and she was just one day she was just like, they can only be as good to you as what they've learned over the years. And if they wasn't raised right, they're not gonna know how to be good uncles to you. And she was like, she was referring to me and my brothers, and she was like, like you guys are better men than they are, but that's just from what they've learned over the years, and we learned a little different, and it's like, in one mind, it's kind of like, how's that fair to me? You know what I mean? It's like,
Mm.
like nobody showed me the ropes. I learned, you know what I mean, and I kind of took what I was missing, and and you try to apply it. And I tell people all the time, it's like, I feel like any man could be a role model to another man, because you can be an uncle to your nephew. You could be a great big cousin. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't take much, in my opinion, to be a male figure in another male's life, or even a little girl's life. You know what I mean? But that's just my opinion on
Yeah, I think it just takes like effort, like, and intentionality, like you just choose it, and I know, like, for some people the circumstances are different, but it's like you you can step up and pour into somebody's life. They ain't got to just be your kid. You can be an example to any person that sees you and how to engage with somebody else and talk, stuff like that. So
it. Right,
yeah.
right. And actually, I've been thinking about this for a little while. I actually want to do an episode at some point. I don't know when. It may be soon, you know. And it's gonna be a little personal for me, but it's also for other women, kind of like yourself, to where I want to do an episode where I'm basically talking to my daughters, and telling them things, because as I say, we're not gonna be here forever. So it'll be out there to where one day, if they ever want to come back to it and listen to it, you know what I'm saying? Whether it's if they want to hear my voice, or if they just want to listen to what I'm saying, as far as the advice that I'm giving them, it'll always be there for them. But I
Yeah.
also want other women to listen, because there's a lot of women who've never had that, so I want to put that out there one day in the
Yeah.
universe, let it float. Yeah.
Listen, that'd be dope, man. That'd be dope. I have seen some amazing like father-daughter relationships
Mm.
in my life. Like in this, especially in this season, as I've even been working through um this book, I just low-key got emotional even thinking about um how I got to see you and Leia together when it was just Leia before Harlem got here. I
Mhm.
haven't got Harlem together, but that's okay. um, but then, like, I think about like Ramon and Harper, and I have my friend, her husband, Mike and their daughter Amari, and this guy from my church, his name is Rance, and he has two daughters, and I get to see them. Like I get to see now my brother-in-laws and their daughters. Like I get to see now what that looks like, what healthy and like real relationship between a father and a daughter looks like. And then on the flip side, unfortunately, I still see, even with some of my nieces, like what a lack of relationship with your dad can do to your self-esteem and your identity and stuff like that. But I'm grateful for like the dads that I do see with their daughters, and I'm like it gives you hope. It's like, Lord, this is possible. It is possible to see healthy father-daughter relationships. Like it's a real thing, and I love it. Like I love it so much. I say all the time, Leia stole your face. Denise does not agree with me, but I think Harlem did too, and Denise says no. I'm like, Harlem looks like Leia. Leia looks like Jeff. Like I'm confused as to how we're getting this mixed up. But like I don't know. I just you have called Leia Ladybug since I have known you. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, even stuff like that, it's just like, that just does something to my heart. It's so sweet to me.
So you didn't have a nickname when you were younger?
I did, but I got
dad?
nuh-uh.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't.
Well, see, it's when you were just saying about seeing the relationships, I was actually at a little kid party, with Denise and the kids and all that. And this one of her friends' sister heard me call Ladybug, Ladybug. And she was just like, oh, and I'm just like, okay, this is a little different. Like, I'm not used to that. But it was kind of cool because she just thought it was adorable of me calling her by a nickname. And she was like,
yeah.
this remind me of when I was younger. And I'm like, man, I guess I never put that much thought into it. I'm like, man, it's kind of deep. And also, going back to you, one thing that I hate from reading your book, even though I think it's a good read,
Yeah.
I think it's
I got
positive.
you.
It could be beneficial. One thing that I hate is this is like a pandemic, and what I mean by that is it's too much of this going on. That's the sad part of it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you want to call it a pandemic or epidemic, but this is what we got to stop. You know what I'm saying? Because look how long you let it fester, you know what I'm saying, in your body. And it's like, you know what I mean? What if you wasn't strong enough to say, hey, I need some help? You know what I'm saying? I want to do something about this. Or what if you wasn't strong enough to go to be strong in your faith? You know what I mean? This could really tear somebody up.
Yeah.
And I mean that's why I say I feel like it could be a good read for men too, because you need to hear this, because it's a lot of people that have kids, but they rather live the street life, and they go back and forth to jail, and it's like, dude, you hurting your kids. I even work with a guy. He got kids. Him and his girlfriend, or mother of his children, they break up a lot. And I'm like, dude, just look at what you're doing to your kids. You know what I mean? You done moved out 2 or 3 times in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
They gonna think that's okay.
Yeah.
And not to mention, and I hope you do this. This is something I tell people about, right? Because this is something I noticed one day.
Okay.
If you look in your neighborhood and after you live somewhere long enough, you kind of what to see. You know what I mean? Like who kind of lives where, the kids that they have, all that. It's been a couple one day I just looked down my street and I was just thinking, it's only a couple houses that have fathers in the household. Almost all of them are single women with kids.
Dang.
I mean, so this is just a little bit of a challenge for you. I mean, like next time you're outside, or I would say at home, just because you see people more frequently. I mean, just think about how many men are in those households with those
Mm,
kids, and not to mention, it's a lot of men that's in households with other people's kids,
mm,
but not their own. And I'm like, how does this become the norm? You
yeah.
know what I mean? And I think that's something we got to do better at, as really, I guess, as men, as a Black community. It's like that shouldn't be normal to leave your kid.
Yeah. Man, that's a good challenge, like for real, because you don't you don't always pay attention to that, you know, and how real. And even when you say, this is pandemic, epidemic, whichever one,
Right.
um, it is happening too much. Like you said, it's um it's too normal for
Right.
this to be the story. And I was talking to this girl, and right after I had, put the book out, and she was saying congratulations, and how she wanted to write a book, about her and her dad's relationship. And I was like, yeah, I was like, oftentimes people hear the statistics, like the number of kids who don't have fathers in the home, blah blah blah. But you don't never get to really hear. You don't often get to hear from the actual kids who grew up in the houses without their dads, or without one of their parents there or whatever. And I was like, it's time for people to hear the real stories of the kids behind those numbers that they keep talking about. And so I think making people more aware of what happens when those relationships with your parents, or when your parents aren't in your life, or your relationship with them is broken or whatever, making more people aware of the impact of that will begin to spark the awareness and the change that needs to happen, for
Hmm.
real. Because,
Right.
it's on us to do better.
Yeah. And see, so I think we got to get this out here. We got to get people to buy it.
Yes.
We have to get people to share
Get
it.
your copy
How can we
available.
get your book?
It is available on Amazon. So
Mhm.
Amazon, Lost Identity of a Daddy's Girl, available in paperback and Kindle version. It's super. It ain't long. It's easy read. But yes, it is available now on Amazon. You can also follow me at Choose to Live Freely on Instagram, and it's in the bio in my Instagram. So yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool. Thank you for letting me record with you.
Yeah.
And
Thank you for having me, Jeff. Like for real. This was great.
no,
This was
man.
so good.
We're helping one another. You know what I mean? It's not. I really was like, dang, I can't believe she said yes to it. You know what I mean? Hey, because you're an author now. You know what I mean?
Oh my gosh. I'm
You know what
regular.
I mean?
I'm
You
regular.
mean next thing you know, I'm gonna have to make an appointment to get with you. You know?
Oh my goodness.
You
That's
know?
only because I probably forget otherwise, but not no other
Yeah, I
reason.
got you. I got you. Well, hey, we want to thank Margaret Humphrey for coming and speaking with us today and sharing some of her story. We didn't want to get too deep into it because you got to buy the book.
Yes, go get it. And thank you again, Jeff, for letting me share my story.
No problem.